Let's have a bit of fun till I downfall. My love, if you feel like I do right now, don't say you're on the run to the other side. My love, you say you wanna try, but you never do. Sugar, there's a reason why we lose.
Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Yo. Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours. Cash and the ticket is yours.
Everfrog Esports trying to find what angle they can, trying to find somebody out of position.
We're gonna go through on this. Oh, what a roll. Whoa. Deep flag. White gonna go in.
It's going to be a really, really interesting one.
Oh my god. All of this competition could be so damn close, so I cannot wait for us to finally decide who's going to be the champion. We are expecting some chaos, some great moments.
Beast Mode has killed 3. Only gonna really need that rampage, so it's gonna clear it out. Santi gonna give themselves a big old 4K. Oh. Santi getting rid of 3, clearing out the house.
That is crazy.
Nunji actually kills 3 people.
This team feels entirely different on this faster composition. Now Cyberport is hanging around, getting onto the high ground. Post bomb's gonna stick under Leaky. They're not gonna be able to survive it at the end of the day. They need to find a 3K.
Rio shoving this Ana into a corner. Woo! One more for the road for Rio.
That is all signs go. Melophobia with 3. Melophobia started the fight. They'll end the fight. Oh my god. Beagle Bus, they have to play aggressively into this energy, popping off in a moment where you needed just that. Ruby in that backline. Oh, the flick. Looking for it. Oh my goodness. The 4th one as well. Do they get the ace? They get the ace.
Welcome, folks. Playoff time here at CGL. It is a fantastic match coming to you from between Subsun and Shiko no Kayji right here in our semi-finals of this division here so far. It is Rags and, of course, Ray bringing you all of the action here tonight. How are we feeling about this match looking at it tonight?
I think we're feeling pretty good. I mean, I think, obviously, Subsun being the #1 overall seed coming out of the open division, which is kind of a big deal. You got to feel like they're the heavy favorites, but I think with the open division, anything can happen because just how talented that division is from top to bottom. So I feel like, I'm cautiously optimistic with hopes that we're going to get a great series.
Yeah, certainly in terms of match record, we really have a clear favorite coming into this one here, but it's playoff time. There's always a chance for these lower seeds to punch up here. This is kind of where, all of the cards are down. You really have to put up here in order to make it further and not get knocked down to that lower bracket. So we are just kicking things off, as you can see here. So yes, we do have Subsun versus SNK Red. And of course, plenty other matches going on in this first round here. The winner, of course, moves on to the second round of the winners. And the loser, well, yeah, appropriately goes down to the losers round. They have a much harder time of it getting all the way to the grand finals, if that is, of course, the aim of all of these teams, but having a tough time here against the current favorite of Subsun. So we'll see if SNK Red really have a chance and what they want to bring out compositionally. We've had some shakeups in terms of the meta.
Because we also have to keep in mind at the same time that this is the one division where money is on the line. So it's going to be that much more exciting for all of these teams. And the good thing is, like we mentioned, there is a loser's bracket. This is not a winner go home. You did mention it is harder having to go through the loser bracket, but at least no matter what, if you lose, you have a chance to learn from your mistakes and get ready for the lower bracket run of the century. As when we come into these playoffs now, the thing that gets more interesting is performance from the regular season gives you an advantage because you get to pick the first map. And we do know what that is going to be coming in from Subsun, as we'll be starting on El Clasico, Lijiang Tower.
Yes, we are not all surprised to see us on Lijiang Tower. Of course, it is such a well-known and storied map in Overwatch's history, all the way back to the founding days of the game, would you believe it? So yes, plenty of compositions, plenty of standards to run with here. There have been some changes in terms of patch notes that just came through yesterday at this point, so we'll see if those impact what we're looking at compositionally here, and what exactly we're looking at. I mean, you mentioned that, like, having their run in the regular season into the playoffs is one thing, getting those wins here, but of course it's a different beast entirely here in the playoffs, here in, this postseason stage. So this is kind of the chance to make a new name for yourself. Even if you just squeaked your way into this seeding, this is now your chance to sort of redefine that heading into the last stages of the season.
I would say the one thing that makes it interesting, obviously we got a ban screen coming online, but with the patch that's coming out, just on Tuesday, hard to imagine that we see the impact immediately, but you never know. But it was also, to me, like just a lot of small changes, especially in the tank department. Like Orisa with Fortify and Terra Surge can now, get crit by Mauga. Ramatra got 25 HP. It was just like small things here or there. Hazard, faster cooldown on the slashes, but he can get crit while blocking now, and his walls do a little bit less damage. So I'm really curious how this is going to shake things up, as Subsun will also get the first ban.
Yeah, we'll see what angle they want to take out the gate here. Haven't got a chance to see a ton of them coming into this, but honestly, with as quick as their matches go, they have barely dropped any maps so far this season. Honestly, looking really dominant here. Their ban is going to be the Zarya. All right, so that tool is out of the hands of both teams here. So if you're going to run, of course, Zarya, very classic for Lijiang Tower, especially control center. So gonna have to find a different angle of attack here. That Orisa does become a lot more viable now.
Yeah, it also feels like, especially with the 25 HP to Ramatra, that there's a possibility that you might just go that direction on a map like Lijiang Tower. Ramatra in recent, hours has been king of this map. But as you mentioned, Zarya also got nerfed one of her perks that give a lot more charge, a lot easier. Got nerfed from like 3 times to 2 times. So Zarya is still viable with that perk either way. So I get why you're going to ban that right out the gate. So now we're just waiting for what the response is going to be. And keep in mind, remember, folks, each team gets 1 ban, and they have to either go damage or support now. And the Tracer ban going to come in for Shiko no Kayji Red.
All right, so yeah, they really want to keep things simple, keep things honest in terms of accessing the opponent backline. You're going to have to find a different avenue of approach there. So, all right, these are certainly very, defining bans here. Having the Tracer off the field, I mean, rarely do you see teams not want to run some flavor of Tracer, or at least have the flexibility to do so, especially on control maps. So, very exciting to see how this shake things up, and if they want to run this in sort of like a dual flex version. But you're looking at the rosters so far, yeah, we can see exactly who we've got rolling out the gate here on the side of Subsun. We do have Mabel and Q for your DPS line, M21X for your tank, HM8, and Thalen for your support line, rounding things out.
And then for the side of Shiko no Kayji, we got Simple, Dusk, Fact Fox, Snow, and Flata. So again, both teams, they're in the open tier for a reason. There's just a lot of talented players on both sides. The question is just going to be, how have they adjusted to this new patch, and are they well prepared and well practiced to try and upset the #1 overall seed, Subsun?
Yeah, Mabel hovering, of course, this Reaper as a favorite pick. Now, we really didn't see any adjustments to Reaper, I believe, with those most recent patch notes. So expect to see continued dominance from players who really are favoring that Reaper, especially, again, on Lijiang Tower, where Reaper is just a very classic hero in terms of these compositions. Especially, of course, not having that Zarya backup is one thing, but Reaper has been so strong recently that even losing that tank support still... I don't think is a big enough hammer to the ankles of this shotgun blasting DPS hero.
As we can see, folks, we will be starting on Night Market for our first sub-map of Lijiang Tower, as we see the lobby getting loaded up. For the side of Subsun, we are looking at a full-on Junker Queen comp. The one thing, that's going to be the other thing I'd be interested in, given that we're going to go to Brawl, is Cassidy got a buff to that flashbang where you're stunned for, like, I believe it's basically half a second longer. So, or you get hindered, from it. So you're slowed, and it's basically a big nuisance, a huge buff to Cassidy. So I wonder how often we're going to see that, as Shiko no Kayji, however, will be rolling out on that Ramatra, as I talked about, 25 extra HP.
Yeah, Factbox here very much favoring that minor buff to the Ramatra. Of course, I think that perk as well with the fists no longer having its duration during Annihilation. Just a fun thing to think about getting into this, but unfortunately facing a ton of pressure from M21X at the very start of this fight here. Maple is showcasing the guns a little bit there, just maintaining pressure and control around this initial choke point as we head into the control. It unlocks in just under a second here. Factbox, just eating so much damage on the approach from M21X and really not able to get healed to full the entire time, does eat a knife, and that is exactly where M21 wants to find that Reaper. So yeah, really solid rotation and control from Subsun first.
Yeah, those Gracie knives from M21 had just been sick so far. Just on target, and that's kind of how you have to be with the Junker Queen, because you need that bleed, you need that constant healing and the draining of the health from the opponent team. And they, especially since they're running a frailer comp, they got to be faster. We do see Fact Fox going over to the Diva now.
Yeah, speaking of that, of course, Snows does take down Anthalen, so have to really worry about your speed capabilities here on the side of Subsun. However, de-meching Fact Fox is really just proving that this Diva, unfortunately, well, is getting some kills. So despite losing the mech, decides the baby Diva is the more efficacious of those options there. And 21, though, is back in the fray. Flata is going to fall as well. So not quite a retake here for Shiko no Kaji. They're just being stalled out as that Kitsune Rush is layered over the objective. It does look like Subsun, although Shige no Kaji are back in this one already. They're not done just yet here. Shige does have this overclock ready to go, but as the last members of the team fall, it looks like finally we have Flata back in yet again. All right, no, we also have Fact Fox. This is fantastic. I love to get to see these teams where they do not say die in these fights, and yeah, they slug it out and maintain control of the objective. For how long, it remains to be seen.
Yeah, I was gonna say they do finally get the point control, but with Fact Fox going off of the edge and the pick on a Flata, that's going to be a quick point reset for the side of Subsun. And again, they haven't used any ultimates. Shige no Kaji used the Kitsune Rush to be able to try and take control of that point. I mean, it bought them 15%, but that's about it. And now as we're coming up on final fight for Shige no Kaji to try and flip this point, they're facing down 5 huge ultimates.
Yeah, relying on Subsun to have the discipline not to spend all 5 at once, although with as close as the timer is getting, and with as little as the ult bank of Shige no Kaji have available to them, you can kind of afford to go with at least 2, make that 3, make that 4 ultimates rolling now for Subsun. 2 kills out from the Deadeyes, Shige and Dusk. No chance at all in the face of such overwhelming pressure coming out from that DPS line, as well as, you know, facing down that Rampage as well out of M21, and it's just the last remaining remnants of the team in Fact Fox and Flata taken down at the end here, and only a measly 15% gain for Shige no Kaji, as Subsun, they look pretty in control most of the way through that one.
Yeah, I can see why they wanted the Zarya off immediately. I mean, the fact that you want to play Junker Queen, Zarya with those bubbles just takes away all the bleed effect and just cleanses everyone. And, you know, can be a good counter to the Rampage ultimate as well. So I think bans, all things considered, went very well for the side of Subsun. And they don't even need the Tracer. Maple and Caillou are just holding it down on the Reaper. Cassidy literally, you know, I think Caillou was just like, I don't know who their Tracer player is, obviously. But they're like, you know, we just have Cass anyway. Cass gets stunned longer anyway, and Cass is a good counter to Tracer anyway. So you're just, you know, playing right into our hands for as far as we can see so far.
Maple happy to continue on the Reaper at the gates for control. Center here, Dusk as well in that mirror. Shige here on the Sojourn was getting some damage done, but unfortunately not finding a ton of value as the fights dragged on. Just as clear and clinical as Subsun are able to be with these early pickoffs just like that, taking Shige out of the fight, and Dusk for good measure as well, as the rest of the team will fall down one by one. It is really Anthalen getting the final blows here. All those boops available to the Lucios, exactly where you want to find yourself, and an early team kill to kick things off.
And again, M21 being so accurate with the Graces are important in that situation because they're going to the high ground. And as Junker Queen, you don't really have the capabilities to go up there and do anything about it. So hitting them with the Gracie to pull them back off of that high ground, it even forced out, they hit the Kiri with it and it forced out the TP. So they're getting major cooldowns taken out of the way, but they have lost their Lucio, so they can't play as aggressive as they want to be.
Yeah, when Shige no Kaji have these early picks, it tends to be on that Lucio, so have to watch your positioning there for Anthalen and everyone else falling down as well, as the rest of Shige no Kaji are moving forwards over the objective here. Again, the Diva from Fact Fox this time finding a bit more value as the retake comes through much sooner than on the previous map. It looks like Shige no Kaji might be finding themselves a bit of a comp to work with here.
I would say with the comp that Shige no Kaji is also running, it's harder to hold close like this against a Junker Queen. It's not like Diva has a whole bunch of damage you can just throw at the choke and, you know, be like, hey, you want to come through, you're going to be taking a lot of damage incoming. So they're already forced to back up pretty quickly, and pressure's already being put on the point. And Suzu's out.
Yeah, Caillou does have the Deadeye, but not for long, actually, here. As Shiko takes down with a bit of a rail shot to the dome, so gonna have to wait a few more moments for that one to be back in the engagement here, but Maple does get the better of Dusk in that mirror fight between the Reapers on the flank. Fact Fox goes out of mech and also falls. No chance to get those Bunny Blaster kills here as Shige lets loose the overclock, but just gets stood upon by Maple. That is a disrespectful Death Blossom if ever I've seen one, and yeah, Maple knows it here. Control rested back for Subsun, but 47% gain for Shiko no Kayji.
That was just, I'm specifically Death Blossoming you. I don't like you. I mean, they were overclocking, so I get it, but Maple knew what they were doing. And Rampage is still available, so we're going to get the aggression coming out, force a sound barrier.
Yeah, sound barriers for both sides here. Flata desperate to keep the team alive and does so just long enough to get Caillou out of this fight here. But that Rampage comes through already when Subsun are down 2 players. So that is not exactly the prime situation you want to find yourself in. M21 just trying to get out with their life intact here, but not able to do so as Shiko no Kayji getting those early pickoffs turns out to be just enough here. And that flip is going to go back in their favor pretty quickly here.
That was actually a really bad fight for Subsun. They use so many ultimates, and they lose that fight, and they lose control of the point. So now you're gonna have a a remech for Factor Fox as well as a Death Blossom coming in from Dusk. And it's not like they don't have anything to eat it on the side of Subsun. It's not like you have a diva who can eat the Death Blossom if you get in a good position. So they don't really have anything to combat this ult.
Yeah, positioning is going to be everything here for Subsun. They really want to find themselves some line of cover here from this expected Death Blossom coming through and an early kill onto Snows. It's absolutely massive here. No chance to build up towards that Kitsune Rush in this fight here. Maple taking Flata out as well. I mean, these are the ultimate picks you need to start off this fight right for Subsun. They've come back in this fight here, fully aware of their win conditions, cleaning up the remaining members of Shiko no Kayji in honestly pretty clinical style here. Now, they still have to match the percentage. We are one fight territory here for essentially both these teams, honestly. If Subsun win this next one, it's going to be really tough to engage here for Shiko no Kayji.
I do think Shiko no Kayji needs to get aggressive. I'd be looking to use Kitsune and Death Blossom almost immediately before some of these bigger ultimates come online for Subsun. They got to go quick.
Yeah, and quickly they move in the braces of this Kitsune Rush here, but Dust not able to get any value out of that Death Blossom here, with the exception of taking Caillou down. That is all you're going to get, but Maple is showing you how it is done. Goes for it and gets the 3K, cleaning up all living members of Shiko no Kayji. And as good as that fight began for the team in red, unfortunately just cleaned up for Subsun here as they will take Lijiang 2-0 and go up in the series.
Yeah, and unfortunate for the team in red, the server was not painted red as Subsun able to take them out. Number 1. Oh, it was from the top rope.
Oh, no.
That makes it even better. Maple just knows how to play on the theatrics of this series. And this is kind of what we were expecting coming out. As we mentioned, Subsun are definitely the huge favorites, and they kind of showed why they're the number 1 overall seed in the NA Open tier. I'm going to be really curious because now the map pick shifts into the control of Shiko no Kayji, and we know it seemed like just Brawl wasn't their thing. We'll see. Maybe Zarya is what they prefer to play in the Brawl, and it just got banned. But if they do prefer this diva composition, there's a lot of maps at their disposal where that diva is going to be better. I think of Rialto, possibly Gibraltar, if that's what you're feeling more for the diva. So I think, now that they can take it to a map that's more favorable for them, maybe that will go better. Maybe they can tie up the series.
Yeah, I really want to see them play their own style, what they feel most comfortable with. I mean, as you say, if Brawl is where they are comfortable, clearly it was not running those compositions. I mean, defaulting to the diva, which, only stops a little bit of the kit that you're receiving from Subsun, but in the face of, the Carnage and the Rampage, they had really no tools apart from the Suzu to answer that, and occasionally a sound barrier, but that's if you don't lose your Lucio and Kiriko at the start of those fights, which was so often the case. Subsun was very clinical with their pickoffs, and really it felt like whenever we were able to see those fight wins come through for Shiko no Kayji, it was a bit desperate, it was a bit scrabbly, and they were doing their very best to find it. And occasionally they did. Like, this was not a complete stomp, it has to be said. It was not a full route. There was certainly percentage gained in both of these sub-maps, so I don't want to count them out just yet, but yeah, Subsun looked pretty unshiftable once they locked in.
As we talked about it too, one point of contention or point of vulnerability you could say for Subsun was, time and time again, Anthalon on the Lucio was getting picked off pretty early in those fights. So I think that's something you can look to see in future maps. Looking to pick them off continuously more, and it'll depend because obviously they may not be playing Lucio. They might be go Gibraltar. The likeliness of you playing Lucio is pretty low, but maybe that's just something to keep looking out for. Xanthalan generally as a support is much more aggressive in nature, so maybe you continue to look to punish that, especially on maps that are more favorable for you. As we are waiting for that map pick coming in from the side of Shiko no Kayji.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see, again, if that D.Va is a comfort pick, really feels like Lijiang Tower was just not the right place to be playing and working with it. So, as you say, anything to run with, like Gibraltar, for example, would be a fantastic switch for them. However, if they really want to continue, if they want to stick onto Azaria, that is going to change the shape of things too, because we really saw how comfortable, at least on this Junker Queen. So that does not mean that all Brawl is going to fall within the auspices of Subsun here, but they really looked very solid on the Junker Queen. I'd be very surprised if that was the only version of Brawl they wanted to run. Honestly, with as good as M21 was on the Queen, you really had to worry almost more about that pincer that you're sort of having to constantly have your head on a swivel for, of Maple on that Reaper. I mean, he knew what he was doing the entire way through, clearly emoting when he could get a sense that the KM was firmly trained on him as well. So very much have to watch out for either the Reaper or whatever else Maple has in their back pocket.
I think this map choice is also going to tell me a lot about the Subsun, as you mentioned. Is the D.Va a comfort pick? Then, you expect the direction to go Gibraltar, Rialto. But let's say they pick Suravasa or something like that. In my head, or maybe even King's Row or something. In my head, that tells me they want to play Zarya, and it was just banned on that first map. And they found themselves kind of just in a hole out from the get-go. And that's going to be the question going forward for the side of Subsun is, I mean, their DPS were fantastic, but Tracer was banned. Do one of their players play Tracer? If so, man, does this get uglier even faster with a comfort pick? I think those are exciting questions to see how the series goes into map number 2.
Yeah, of course, we might not have been seeing either of these teams playing at full strength so far. So, especially on the side of Subsun, yeah, that's a little frightening of a prospect to consider. And Shiko no Kayji, I think, are going to be well aware of that coming into this map here. I mean, they just saw and experienced the same map that we did, so they are very much conscious of, what it's going to take over this team. They have to exploit every mistake you can possibly find. Any of those forays being made by either Xanthalan or any of these squishies sort of moving a bit forward from where they should be here and trying to find these off angles, because it really doesn't seem as though once Subsun have themselves in a comfortable position, once it came down to the very end of both of those submaps on Lijiang Tower, they were kind of unshiftable. They closed out those final fights with a bang. It was not sort of a dragged out sort of procedure. They played with their food a little bit, I think, once we got to the very late stages of those fights. So whether or not Shiko no Kayji can exploit that confidence remains to be seen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. It felt like when it was time to lock in for the side of Subsun, they really locked in and owned the server. So that's going to be the question going forward, as we do have the map pick coming in, and it's going to be Circuit Royale, which to me is an extremely interesting map choice because, back in the day, this used to be a big Sigma map, but Sigma's just not good anymore. So it has turned into situations where you've seen hazards being played on this map. Obviously, still like Orisa and Ram Brawl can still be good. So I don't. It was funny. I said, hey, if they pick, like Rialto or they pick Rialto Gibraltar, I'm going to assume this D.Va's a pocket pick. But if they go King's Row or Suravasa, I'm going to assume they want to play Zarya. This map does not answer either of those questions to me.
No, I think more questions have been raised, honestly, by the selection of Circuit Royale here. You could certainly run the Zarya composition down mid here, especially on offense. That is more than doable, of course. Accessing that high ground on point B is a bit tougher, but we'll see exactly what we want to look at as the bans first. Those are really going to sort of indicate as a brief window into, before we get into the actual compositions themselves, what we might be facing here. And as you said, I wouldn't expect to see a ton of Sigma. He's not really favored as much as this used to be very much Sigma's playground. It's kind of fallen by the wayside here. If you really need poke, people just run Ramatra because you can go for the brawl with that anyway. And all right, Shiko no Kayji are taking no chances. They want that Sigma out of both teams' hands here. So, I mean, that also could be a tank protection ban. We'll have to see.
In my head, I want to say that's a tank protection ban, but I feel like you never know with 100% certainty. So, I guess we'll be finding out very shortly. The question is, what will be the response from Subsun? And it is going to be the Lucio, which I don't know. Like, I don't necessarily think of Lucio when I think of Circuit Royale. So to me, it's a little peculiar of a ban. But maybe they were expecting some Brawl to want to be played here, especially with Sigma off of the field. So, you know, maybe they want to get rid of the speed capability. I mean, obviously still have Juno, but Lucio is definitely the go-to in a speed situation for Brawl.
Yeah, if you think they're going to be running that into, you know, without that Sigma, you sort of have a read on their composition, I guess. But yeah, as you say, Lucio is really not sort of du jour in terms of coming into Circuit Royale here. The payload's only going to move so fast, and of course it is helpful to get everyone around quicker, but you usually have your Kiriko to work with that, or even the Kiri Wuyong is a solid backline to work with, especially on these longer maps, on these escort and hybrids, where you have that flexibility and also the potential to speed yourself around too. So I think this, you know, I would be surprised if this feels like a massive wound for Subsun, or just like something, you know, if this feels more like they're making an adjustment here. They're just playing within the parameters so far, and they feel comfortable enough, you know, not having to worry about that Sigma, that they feel like they can kind of run whatever into this.
Yeah, it's again, the Sigma. I can't imagine teams are going to run Sigma. So that, to me, it's like, it's got to be a protection ban for something, you know, because it's not like they have to worry about the Zarya getting banned, because it can't get banned anymore. So we're going to be getting you guys into this map right away so we can figure out exactly what tank they were protecting.
That's right. Enough speculation. It is time to see exactly what we're rolling out with here. Honestly, in some cases, having the Lucio out of the hands of your support line can be good here. I mean, we saw Anthalon, who was playing very well.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I don't want to harp on it. I do not. Did very well with those sound barriers, but that is certainly not a problem, I think, coming into this here in terms of you don't have to worry about that anymore. You don't have to worry about those early Lucio picks. But on the defense, it is.
If it was my team, they'd have no problem. Like, if, you know, you were feeding on it and they banned it, good. Our teammates not going to feed on it anymore.
Yeah, so I understand if Subsun, you know, they don't want to deal with that coming into the second map of the series. We're looking at Ramatra comps from both sides, though.
Which is interesting because, I don't know, I can't imagine that they were looking to ban that on this map. But Ramatra also allows you to go with poke style, or consequently also play Brawl. As defensively, we see the BAP Zen, which is classic like defense setup. And then for the side of Subsun, they're going to go hyper offensive with the Ana Illari.
Yeah, looking at this Illari here, they really want to be able to get the most out of this, of course, the healing pylon, but just have so much damage being put through by this backline here. So yeah, looking for Anthalon, already building up a solid amount of ult charge here, really laying in both the heals and damage so far. FactFox, once again on this Ramatra, just eating so much damage as we roll in. This is honestly feeling exactly like the opening to Lijiang Tower, where it feels like you can't take 2 steps as FactFox before just taking so much damage from the opposing side here. Of course, Ruby and Caillou are kind of uncontested at this long range. Only Simple really to answer in terms of trying to disrupt that backline.
Yeah, they have to rely pretty heavily, as you mentioned, on Shui being able to make something happen on this Freya, which is a very good defensive pick in this situation. And then they need Simple to be able to, you know, take good dives, get in there with the dig and disrupt a lot. But we're not seeing, they're playing a little bit passive right now, which I don't know if I like that.
No, with the aggression coming out here, Subsun really looking comfortable rotating around this final corner before taking point A here, and that is a sleep coming through onto FactFox, just having a terrible time on this Ramatra so far, but not as bad a one as M21 is here, going down in the face of overwhelming damage out from Shige, and that is an early Bola shot coming out as well, does fall for their trouble as Ruby on that Widowmaker, still able to pick you out of the sky. You have to be so careful about this Widowmaker at all positions here. The Transcendence out from Flada, determined to keep the team alive as they roll forward. Bit of aggression here for the defense. I like to see this. Flada taking out a retreating HM. That is a really solid, hopeful end to this fight here. Has to be careful not to be shortened by a head by Ruby, who is just playing aggressive as you please on this Widowmaker.
I mean, that's a big mistake from Flada. You knew the infrared sights were up. You should not be poking your head out there when the sights are up, because you know they're just waiting for you to do that. And they didn't get the kill initially, but did enough damage for the rest of their team to be able to follow up on it. And now they can nano overclock if they want to, but Window, they're going to have to deal with that first.
Window from Snows, yeah, trying to maintain some pressure here, both healing and damage, trying to keep Factfox alive, but that is an anti-nade out from HM08. That is so much value being gained there, and losing your tank. I mean, that is, of course, the center point of Shiko no Kaji's composition here. No one else has that staying point, certainly not in the space you need it. So with that, everyone else is going to fall. That Annihilation out from M21 is cleaning up those remaining members. Probably not entirely necessary, but if you really want to show this one up and get everyone back to spawn quick, smart, that is the way to do it.
I don't know, Shui did get 2 picks there, so I don't necessarily hate the fact that she used Annihilation there, but I do think for Shiko no Kaji, getting that Annihilation out was absolutely massive. So that was 3 ults you basically forced them to use in order to get that. I mean, they will have an infrared sights coming up again, but you're going to have an absolutely overwhelming ult advantage for this next fight. And these, you know, just afforded 2 defensive positions you get, it's going to be that much more important that you got to stabilize.
Yep, massive early pickoffs though. Simple with that tectonic shot, cleans up 2 and has sight set on a 3rd, taking Ruby out. Of course, this is where that Widowmaker starts to have kind of a tough time on the offense. That was really the best chance for a Subsun to find positioning with this composition. And yeah, you'll see some immediate swaps back in spawn as Caillou is now on the Cassidy once more. And yeah, Anthalen building up to this Captive Sun, ready to go for this next fight.
And now they're able to be able to hold defensively is Shiko no Kaji. It only cost them their tectonic shock. Oh, but Simple going down is simply not what you needed there.
Now, that's a pretty brutal start to this fight. Again, that is your massive pressure to the backline of Subsun. Only Shige, and now not even that DPS is in this engagement here, as Ruby sticking on this Widowmaker, just use the infra sights and cleaning up the opposing Freya. And with that, I mean, Shiko no Kaji are beating the hasty retreat here, as they do not want to stick in this fight for a few moments longer. Though, however, making me eat my words, they go for that for the Nemesis mode there, not the Annihilation. I was confused for a brief moment, but yeah, Caillou taking out Factfox. That is all the engagement you're going to get here, as we have that payload just drifting into point B here.
I don't even think you get a touch at this point. I mean, maybe you touch with the... I was curious to see if they wanted to touch with their... wow, they're going full in.
Not only do they want to, they intend to, and that is an Annihilation rolling for Factfox. I mean, finding 2 already here as HM08 and Kyo both falling down. Flada cleaning up in the wake of that Ramatra. That is some lore buff if ever I've seen one there. And honestly, an incredible contest there from Simple to keep it alive, and the rest of the team right behind them.
I think given there's only a minute and a half on the clock, a 2-for-1 ult exchange to stop that point from getting capped is extremely, extremely good for the side of Shiko no Kaji. They can still hold defensively. They'll have a window they can place to either get some kills or force them back and buy some time, but they got to deal with these emphasites.
Yeah, having to watch out here. Of course, Simple falling down yet again. Subsun have been really good at spotting them out early on in these engagements here and taking so much pressure off themselves as they push forwards here with under a minute to go, trying to take point B, trying to continue the map a little bit longer here on their offense. But Flada getting Caillou out early on. I mean, this is a tough start as well. Now each team down a DPS, although on the side of Shiko no Kaji, Simple getting in very quickly to this engagement here. M21 only finds with that Annihilation the Immortality Field and goes down for their trouble. So we are down to 30 seconds here, and Subsun, they're running out of tricks to pull.
Wow, that was great positioning from the side of Shiko no Kaji, and they got the Annihilation out of M21. It feels like things are all going. I say that, but Subsun's found 2 picks under the DPS line. So now Shiko no Kaji's forced to back up, and I don't know if they're going to be able to get their players in time before this next fight ensues.
Devastating start to this fight here. Of course, you only have Fox to rely on for your front line, who just needs every CC that the team of Subsun have available to them. Does manage to get out just with a sliver of health, getting healed up by the support line just barely, and that is a well-timed shield to keep the tank alive. It looks like Simple's back in the fight just in time here. Overtime Wick burning down, and Simple has this tectonic shot, cleaning up so many members here, doing so much damage. When you're all clustered together like that, there's nowhere to run from these ults. Incredible work at the 11th hour from Shiko no Kayji, holding the door at point B. And what looked like a pretty strong push coming out from Subsun, does not get 2 points out of it.
Despite over and over getting hard punished and hard picked early, Shiko no Kayji did a great job of falling back, getting to their defensive positions, but also putting up a fight just long enough, because if they just backed out immediately, you would have got that cart delivered by the time they had the players in. So they had to put up a little bit of a fight so the cart didn't move, but still gave themselves time to exit and re-engaged with their venture. So I think the position battle in those situations, Shiko no Kayji was playing to their end game perfectly.
Yeah, I was really impressed with what I saw. Like, it felt they got their defense online the further they got into it. Once they had the ability to defend from that high ground, once that first push from Subsun did not pay off, there was just so much headwind for them to sort of run into uphill the entire way. Much like a grandpa telling a story to a kid going to school. Yes, they had to go uphill both ways in the snow here in lovely Circle Royale, so not a whole lot of snow. But yeah, having that Widowmaker was incredibly valuable for the offense, but not able to get a ton of positioning there as those fights drug on. And Shiko no Kayji were more than happy to sort of pull Subsun into their web before they fought back. It was scrappy. I will not say it was clinical and clean, but they made it work at the end of the day, and that's what counts.
As I see defensively coming out for Subsun, the Hans, I was waiting, we saw the Widow on the attack, so defensively and, on the attack for both teams, we are going to see the Hanzo, which is like, rolling the RNG, rolling that D20 every time to see if you're going to get that kill or not.
Yeah, double bows out for Shiko no Kayji on the offense. Shige was getting a bunch of work done, building up those bullet shots nice and quick with that bounty hunting passive, of course. Ruby here, as you say, mirroring that Hanzo, taking up, says there's only room for one Hanzo in the server right now, and taking Flata for good measure as well. So yeah, it looks as though that critical hit threshold has been reduced a little bit here for Ruby, if I may nerd out for just a brief moment here, as M21 cleans up Fox as well. That is the first fight going the way of the defense here. And Subsun, they have proven they're not shaken by that shortened offense.
As we did see on that attack, Flata got taken out pretty early, but I think all things considered, I think the Zen's been a very good pick for Shiko no Kayji on this map specifically. I think the Discord Orb has been putting in massive amounts of work. In those situations where they're forced to back out, the Discord Orb plus damage from the team has been enough to buy them time, because the Subsun couldn't aggress as much as they would have liked to.
Here on the high ground, of course, Ruby and Anthalen both putting in so much damage here, almost building up towards those ultimates. M21 trying to hold the line here on the high ground, having plenty of cover to work behind. And as you head into this bridge, this is really a tough point to push here for Shiko no Kayji, and we are seeing that come to fruition here as Fox falls down. Those storm arrows coming out from the Hanzo. Yeah, there's very little you can do once you don't have your shield and arms available to you as that Ramatra. So we are down to about half the offensive time bank for Shiko no Kayji, already burned for very little progress to be gained.
I would say, given the fact that they were able to hold on second point, they just have to make sure they get this first point. I don't think, time's going to be, the biggest issue, like they have to worry about making sure they conserve time for third point. Simple has gone back over to the Venture. He was very hit or miss. Either they were getting picked extremely early or they were disrupting very heavily. So they need to find massive amounts of value, and soon, because they're under 2 minutes already.
Kaio has this Deadeye ready on the high ground without that shield, just waiting for that Ramatra shield to time out. There's very little that they can do, and yep, that is Simple. It's a bit of a profit there, right? I have to say. Taking out early in this fight as HM does find the better of that Venture pick. However, Fox is not done just yet, though. The flying captive stunning Anthalen in the sky. There is still so much damage coming out from Subsun. Sun mentioned there, I suppose. But Shige finding Ruby as well at the back end of this fight. All right, so it turns out we are not done just yet for Shiko no Kayji. This is exactly the fight win they needed. It was messy. It did not pan out the way they want. And you're coming into 4 ultimates, but this is exactly where you want to find yourselves.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was a 1-for-1. I mean, 1-for-2 essentially ult trade for Subsun. So I think they're pretty happy. They'll be able to come in 4 ultimates, and 51 seconds on the clock. They want to fight here. They just gotta make sure they conserve some ultimates.
Yeah, as we open with the window on the objective from HM08 here, and Thalen is the only one without an ultimate so far in this engagement for Subsun. Everyone else has them ready to rock, as Factbox lets us the annihilation on the objective. M21 mirrors shortly afterwards. That Discord Orb is doing so much work onto M21. That permanent block from that Ramatra, yeah, just facing so much damage coming through on the back of that Discord, and of course those relentless punches coming out from Factbox. And yeah, Shiko no Kayji, they break open point A with a couple ults to spare.
Again, I think, as you mentioned, this is showing the power of that Zen pick. M21 stood no chance with the Discord Orb on. They were sitting there just blocking the entire time. It didn't matter because the Discord Orb was basically outweighing the damage reduction from the block. And they're still going to have a Bolo shot, and they're going to have their Tectonic Shock. So Caillou going to have to put in mass amounts of work with this high note. We saw them be able to do it previously on Lijiang Tower. Can they get another one here?
Yeah, the pressure very much on. However, Discorded and taking a bunch of damage does manage to take the Immortality Field from Snows out of the fight. Long cooldown for that one. Plenty of time waiting for it to come back on the side of Shiko no Kayji. Simple does have this Tectonic Shock, though, and has proved so lethal with it, but not if you get taken down immediately by that silver bullet. This is Caillou performing perfectly here. No notes whatsoever, cleaning up everyone necessary in that Deadeye, icing on the cake. And finally, Shiko no Kayji have the momentum slowed for a little bit more longer here. And this is where it gets tough, pushing in to point B without that momentum on your side.
Agreed. You still have a minute and a half. 2 ultimates coming online, maybe 3, depending on how long this fight goes. Subsun, if this, just at the initial beginnings of this fight, all they're going to have is a captive sun. And I feel like the Zenyatta ult does a lot to counter that. Let's see what they decide to do.
Yeah, the sun is rolling here as Thalen does go up in the sky and lands it, but not able to confirm or capitalize on that. Unfortunately, Ruby has that Dragon Strike, so it seems like you may have dodged the sun, but eat a dragon on the side of Shiko no Kayji. So despite that Transcendence, Flata looking a little bit sheepish now with the only one left alive apart from Factbox, who once again will get sent back to spawn. And Subsun, yeah, they make that one look pretty solid with only, those 2 ults to work with. They made them count.
Not a huge fan of that Transcendence coming in from Flata. As soon as you lost 2 to that Dragons, you needed to back out and look to regroup. 2 to the Dragons and the Captive Sun. You still have 4 ultimates to work with for this, and 2 for the side of Subsun, so they still are in striking distance, but they got to get going.
Yeah, momentum is very much in their favor now on this high ground with all these ultimates in their pocket, and now with 2 of them already rolling, that is exactly what Simple needs to be doing. This is the fight that they have broken things wide open here, and then there's really no chance for anyone remaining of Subsun to touch. I mean, blink and you miss it. That fight cleans it up. And we are at 1-1 in this series here. Shiko no Kayji, they are not out of this one just yet.
This is what I was kind of talking about, where it's like, yeah, Subsun's the #1 overall seed, but this is the open tier. All the teams in this division are extremely talented, and I just felt like, man, it just felt like Lijiang was, which baffles me at the same time, right? So I'm sitting here like, why weren't you playing Ramatra on the first map? Like, Ramatra's good on Lijiang Tower, like, and you seem to kill it on Circuit Royale. Like, where was this Ramatra map #1?
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning on Night Market, there was a tiny sliver of Ramatra coming out, but just got immediately dumpstered. And then they went to the Diva and stuck with the Diva for the rest of the map, which, I mean, we all know how Lijiang Tower went. So yeah, it seems like this Ramatra comp might be the thing, at least in terms of how we're playing on Escort. Of course, how you play it on Control does work a bit differently, although you're right, they looked really solid in this composition. When, they were feasting, they were really feasting. It was those famines you have to worry about, but fortunately, plenty more food to be had here for the side of Shiko no Kayji. So, yeah, this series is all tied up. We are going to at least 4 maps here, which is a fantastic kickoff to this playoffs for this particular division here. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see where we go from here in the series.
Yeah, 1-1 series, all tied up. We are going to throw it to a quick break, see what these teams are going to come up with in the meantime. But don't go anywhere. Grab a snack, grab a drink, because we have a series on our hand, folks. We'll be right back.
Memories. Memories. Yeah. Memories. Memories.
Water is the softest and most yielding substance, yet nothing is better than water for overcoming the hard and rigid, because nothing can compete with it. Lao Tzu.
Name straight, new wave. Name straight, new wave. Name straight, new wave. Name straight, new wave.
Welcome back, folks, to CGL. Playoff time for Open Division. We have a series on our hands. Subsun and Shiko no Kayji are both 1-1 here in this series as we head into our third map. This one is going to dictate the tempo going forwards into the end of it here. And I think we already have an idea of where we're headed here.
Yeah, we have that map pick coming in. It shifts back to Subsun after dropping map number 2. New Junk City is what is on the table. It feels definitely back, based on, how the first two maps went. New Junk City has more of the vibes of Lijiang Tower than it does Circuit Royale. So I feel like this is a very good map choice for the side of Subsun. It feels like they might go back to their Junker Queen roots. I mean, this is her home map.
Yeah, I imagine Subsun a little bit shaken here. I mean, I don't think they expected to have such a close loss on that previous map there for Circuit Royale. We really got to see Shiko no Kayji play their own game, which was really nice to see. They felt pretty comfortable. I mean, that initial hold, despite going down pretty early on for point A on Circuit Royale, they were able to sort of burn so much clock off of that point B take to the point where all they had to do in their offense was simply cap point B. Didn't have to worry about point C whatsoever. So impressive stuff coming out from them. I have no illusions that Subsun now have to find themselves in lock-in mode. They need to get themselves sorted, and I completely agree. Going to flashpoints, very much shades of control here. So we'll see what the bans are so far. Reminder that teams cannot ban, of course, the same hero more than once in a series. However, the other team, if they were feeling so spiteful, could ban that same hero if they just do not want to see them whatsoever here. So we'll see what goes so far. It's been 2 tanks banned already, so we'll see how far we run through the tank roster.
Feels like both teams have been going at this and making sure they protect certain tanks. So wouldn't surprise. Yeah, we're gonna get the Orisa ban, which to me, likeliness, not only is that like a Junker Queen protect, but I think Orisa plays pretty well into Junker Queen. So it's also like we're protecting our Junker Queen and we're taking out a hero who kind of goes well into the Junker Queen.
Yeah, double protection essentially out there from Subsun. So I think a solid choice. It also signals, I mean, pretty obviously that we're going to be seeing that queen once again here. So now it is time for Shiko no Kayji to decide exactly what variety of bands they would like to see. And they want that Reaper out of here. Honestly, probably the best band they could have done.
Yeah,
I think
I'm like
that is
based.
correct.
Totally
Yeah.
based.
Yeah, they said
After
we
the
are not letting
disrespect
Maple back
showed
in.
on map number 1. I would have been the same way. If I was them, I would have been like, oh man, we are getting rid of that Reaper next chance we get. Like,
Yeah, that is a
been
solid
like, oh,
band
you want
coming out.
emote on us? All right.
Yeah, I can imagine that Shige in particular says, they death blossomed on my head. I will have no more of that, please. I would not like to have that anymore. Yeah, and especially
This is also a good map for the Reaper just because it's so
Yeah.
close quarters, and it's not like Gibraltar where obviously he is the TP, but you know, Reaper, it's not super thriving in a lot of high ground. He likes to just play very linearly, likes to just go at people, get in their face, and that's exactly how New Junk City is going to play. As we'll be getting you guys into this map very shortly, and here we go.
Yeah, so that is a major threat off the table, something that Shiko no Kayji don't have to worry about for the duration at least of New Junk City. And you have to expect for Subsun that this is an expected ban at some point in the series. You know, they can't let them, the opposing team, you know, Shiko no Kayji cannot let them do this the entire time. You cannot have that Reaper as such a back pocket assassin constantly. So I'm sure that there's going to be some adaptations coming through, of course, that we did not see much of any Reaper at all, I believe, on Circuit Royale. I mean, my memory is already failing me if we did, but it was mostly dealing with those long-range heroes. So yeah, we're getting to see... Oh no, right, they had Ruby in instead of Maple on the side of Subsun. So Maple is still in here. We'll see if that Tracer hover comes to fruition as we have a pause, folks.
Part of the game, folks. I know it just feels like, oh, we're right there, and just it's okay. We'll be getting you guys into that action very shortly. This has been a great series so far. For anyone just tuning in, Subsun definitely the favorites coming in, #1 overall seed in this open tier. But Shiko no Kayji has shown we're in the open tier. We made playoffs. There's a reason why we're here. And map number 2 took it to circuit, went into the Ram Brawl, but they played, you know, that Zenyatta actually came very strong for Flata. I think, to me, that was probably like the reason they won that map was because of that Zenyatta, the Discord Orb being able to give them the edge in the Ramatra duel, as well as plenty of times they just use that Transcendence essentially to just be more aggressive and look for kills faster. They weren't like, oh, here's an ult that I want to survive through. They go, no, we're using this to keep ourselves alive as we get into your face.
Yeah, it was really solid adaptations coming out for Shiko no Kayji, so I would not expect, of course, to see Zenyatta on this map here. That is really not a place you want to find yourself when you are a levitating monk. I mean, there's just so much dive potential coming through. But later on in this series, if it becomes a problem again, or if Subsun, you know, remember in the back of their heads what a problem Flata was on that Zenyatta, I would not be surprised to see a ban come through later on to get that Zenyatta off the field, because it was such a nuisance. And I completely agree. I think it was probably the most important piece of the composition for Shiko no Kayji on Circuit Royale here. So diving into New Junk City here, of course, we're looking at more fast-paced compositions. We're looking at your Lucio Curie backline. That potential is still very much in the hands of both these teams here. They both looked comfy enough on that pick. I mean, I think especially for Subsun, around that Junker Queen, that feels like the most optimal backline. I mean, we saw that with, you know, the initial of Overwatch 2, the Jotes meta, of course, just really allowing you to speed directly over everyone's heads. And it really feels like Subsun have taken notes from that bygone era of 3 years ago now.
You're just giving me flashbacks, Jotes, goats, like, it's an interesting time to be a caster and a player in Overwatch. And none of you new guys coming into Overwatch, you feel like an old man, like, you guys don't know what I went through back in my day. But I digress. We're in Overwatch 2 now, 5v5, tied 1-1. I do think, given that everything is on the board support wise, if you are going to go Junker Queen on one side, I mean, it feels like you just go Kiri Lucio. Like, that's just how it is. Like, you need the speed. The Kiri just comes through in so many different ways. You know, maybe I've seen some teams run like Kiri Wu Yang or Wu Yang Lucio, but I just think that Kiri Lucio is a little bit stronger, especially ever since Wu Yang's gotten his micro nerfs over the years, but yeah, it does look like for the side of Subsun, they will keep that Lucio carry. And this time, the Tracer's available for them as it previously wasn't on Lijiang Tower. So really curious to see how that dynamic's going to come into play with no Reaper this go around.
Yeah, and Ruby here on this Venture. So a Venture Tracer frontline, I love this so much. They can just play absolute pincer maneuver upon their opponents here. And Shiko no Kayji, yeah, they're sort of having to deal with all these directions at once. Factbox trying to decide where that D-Matrix is going to go. And unfortunately, again, there's nothing you can do in the face of that drill and of the axe swing coming out from M21 as well. So yeah, that is an early first fight win here. Flada not able to get away. Yeah, that Wu Yang, no chance once you've got that Gracie and, of course, the speed coming out from Subsun. As, yeah, I think they find themselves comfy enough without that Reaper.
Just feel like we're in a little bit of a replay of map number 1, the Diva into the Junker Queen. It just does not work that well. I do like that they have the Venture in the Genji instead. So I want to see how these DPS, because, you know, it combos a lot better with the Diva. So let's see. There's just not a lot of diveable targets for the side of Subsun.
No, and of course, Flada, I mean, just finding yourself in an awkward position there, as well as Snows also getting taken down. I mean, yeah, that is just such a brutal start to this fight. And like you say, there's no real ideal dive target here. Everyone is just so slippery, it can move away at a moment's notice here. Factbox getting DMX'd and also taken down. Proven to be very able with that Bunny Blaster on Lijiang Tower, but not enough here. Wise to their tricks are Subsun.
I was gonna say, at least for the side of Subsun, you at least can like walk on like the carry Wu Yang and get something done. But they are not gonna swap over the Hazard, which I like that a little bit better. I'm curious to see how the Hazard does play in with the recent changes. I mean, gets buffs in one places, nerfs in others, so let's see.
Yeah, a little bit of a rebalancing here for the Scottish hero, but yeah, does unfortunately still take a bunch of damage if you are not blocking. So yeah, M21 just turning around and shooting the Hazard from behind. That's gonna hurt certainly, as this team kill does. Wait, no, sorry, that was a bit of a different fight coming through there. Yeah, this fight's still triggering on the objective here, as Subsun, they looked like they were in control the further we got into this. Backbox falling down, but the rest of the team was on the objective here, forcing Subsun back. And despite losing most members, M21 is still alive and kicking. And as long as that Junker Queen is in the fight, your team is not done. Subsun, just by the heroics, will take the first round.
I have an ongoing theory based on the patch notes for Hazard. I feel like at the highest levels of play, the change to the block, you know, where you can still get crit with the headshots, I think that's going to be a huge deal, especially at higher levels of play where you can just constantly aim for those headshots. Lower levels of play, I don't know, because you're not constantly going to be dinging people in the head like that.
Now, Tectonic Shock as well out from Simple here, able to clean up HM08 on the back of that. M21 also falling down as Dusk pulls the blade as well. So yeah, this is a solid fight win. A few ults spent here, but to get things off to a nice start, you'll certainly pay that toll here. Subsun, however, coming back into this, are going to have 3 of their own.
I think that's okay, though. That was a 2-for-1 exchange, because you got the Tectonic Shock out of Ruby, and you get Ruby late, so that's a great stagger. Shiko no Kayji coming back strong, and they still have Kitsune Rush, and the longer this takes, the more ults they're going to have at their disposal.
I mean, cleaning up M21 at the back end of this fight here, it looks as though Subsun were going for a regroup, but Shiko no Kayji are playing so aggressive here. They're not allowing any chance to come off spawn for Subsun. I mean, it's a long-distance spawn camp, honestly, here, as Subsun are just trying to get themselves back to a full 5 bodies, and eating so much damage on the approach, as Shiko no Kayji are about to have that downpour online for Factbox, but not a whole lot else to work with so far, whereas Subsun have plenty of tools to break through this. However, we're already ticking up to 75% here on the objective. Yeah, finally Maple applying some pressure here. Does have that pulse bomb ready to go if you want to land it onto that back line, but already missing your Kiriko and your Venture, but M21 is still here, rotating around the squishy members of the team. Flada just immediately taking a boot to the noggin from Antheon here on this Lucio. So again, a strong start to that fight, but the staying power is very much Subsun's.
And again, I think if you're Shiko no Kayji, like, you know, I'd be like, all right, fine. We got it at 99%. We got them to use 3 ults, and then the pulse bomb whiffs as well. So now you can re-engage, and you could, you know, look to tidal wave blast your Venture and allow them to get aggressive with this Tectonic Shock.
Yeah, certainly have plenty of tools to work with here. It goes onto the Hazard instead for that Tidal Blast, able to force M21 all the way back and off the objective as the point gets flipped. The Tectonic Shock once again from Simple. I mean, no one can really touch and contest the objective here with that so much damage coming through and the boot potential from the Venture as well. So much work being done here just on the back of these two ults from Shiko no Kayji, and they're going to take the second point. I mean, Flashpoint is already looking pretty competitive.
Agreed. I do think the swap over to the Hazard is helping a lot. You know, even though the walls do less damage now, just being able to block and wall people off, even for a second or two. Obviously it's not as big as like a May wall damage-wise that it's going to absorb. It still goes very strong and it's very helpful, especially in team coordinated efforts. And then Dusk going to be able to still have a blade for this next point with nothing online for Subsun.
Now, this is certainly going to be a fight about building ultimates here if they can stay alive long enough to do so. Snow has this rush ready to go. Dusk with that blade cleans up, and Thalen, you can fly nice and high with that Lucio, but not high enough to escape a Genji blade in hand. Simple cleaning up HM08 and M21 falling down as well. Yeah, that is not the long, drawn-out fight building ultimates that you needed for Subsun. That was a pretty quick and decisive victory for Shiko no Kayji, and they are now in the driver's seat.
And again, that was just, well played. Shiko bought their time, got their ult online, allowed their Genji to get aggressive, and they had the cooldowns to give him with the Suzu to keep him alive so he can keep slashing and striking. And now they're putting a lot of pressure on a Maple, trying not to give them an easy way to get on this point.
As soon as M21 builds up to that rampage, immediately gets taken down. So much pressure out here from Shiko no Kayji. They are able to bring so much heat to all members of Subsun. At this point, you're just stalling out the objective here as we're up to 70% and counting for the side of Shiko no Kayji. Losing, of course, Dusk on that Genji does put a slight damper on this, but they are in the driver's seat. They are on the defense here, and Subsun have about a good suite of ultimates coming into this fight here. Maple with the Pulse Bomb, not able to find anything, and you're just trying to touch the objective at this point as we are up to 98, 99. The overtime wick begins burning as Anthalen falls down as the fight kicks off well and truly here. Two ults already out for Shiko no Kayji, just shutting the door in the face of Subsun. However, Snow does fall down as well as Simple here, so there are still some signs of life here from Subsun, but they are very sparse in the realm of ultimates. Only Anthalen about to build up towards the sound barrier, but it will be in time to keep the tank alive. No, M21 falls down, but Backbox as well on the side of Shiko no Kayji getting the axe. So kind of trading blow for blow here, both tanks out of this engagement, and we are really rotating around the objective. Looks as though Subsun have the positional advantage here, but numbers very much favoring Shiko no Kayji as they have 4 bodies already present here, and Simple on this Venture has proved so useful at disrupting the back and front lines of Subsun here, who do benefit from that sound barrier out from Anthalen, but as it wears off, control finally flips into their favor. Tanks back in the fight. Oh, I guess we're going again.
Oh, Ruby, who's also on the Genji, going to have the blade available, but they found Maple. Opening has been created with the downpour as well.
Yep, locked up immediately there. That Suzu just trying to keep M21 alive, and that blade from Ruby is massive, cleaning up the back line in one fell swoop. HM08 able to clean up Dusk as well. All right, this is finally the stay of execution that Subsun have been waiting for. They are determined to get back into this map here and not let momentum swing in the direction of Shiko no Kayji.
I think this next fight, I mean, obviously it's the last fight for this point specifically, but it's going to be an important one given that Shiko no Kayji is going to be coming in with 3 key ultimates, the Kitsune, the Tidal Wave, and the Blade. Subsun's going to have to outlast a lot of them, and all they have is the Rampage.
Yeah, counting on keeping M21 alive as this fight ticks on. That rush, though, to kick things off here for Shiko no Kayji is a crucial way to start things out. The rest of Subsun have to scatter to the winds. You do not want to face a Tidal Blast, Venture, or Hazard, but unfortunately you cannot run too far without the overtime wick of the objective burning down before your very eyes. As the backline falls, the rest of Subsun retreats to the spawn doors here as Ruby just keeps a few more seconds of point contention here, but that is going to be another flashpoint gained here for Shiko no Kayji, and they are on map point at this point.
And Dusk being able to hold on to the blade is going to be critical coming into this third point, as well as that tectonic shock. But M21 obviously still able to hold on to the Rampage, so they're still going to have that tool at their disposal. But this third point, I mean, the Ducks specifically, positioning is going to be key, because obviously the point is on the low ground, but you want to control high ground. So it makes, when do we drop? When do we stay high ground? It's a lot of communication needs to be had.
Yeah, early kills out from M21, though. That is a crucial start for the side of Subsun, looking really solid out the gate here. Position very much in their favor as they swing and rotate around the objective. That rush does facilitate the victor in that fight. It was a spend, but only spending one ult in that fight, you kind of have to count that one a win in your favor. But Shiko no Kayji are about to come into this next one with quite a few at their disposal.
They are, and I feel like if you are Shiko no Kayji, you got to look to be pretty dang aggressive with these ones, just because you gotta realize, at least, you know, if you're ult tracking properly. And Thalin's coming up on, you know, beat, but probably doesn't have it yet. So if you get aggressive quickly, you can catch them off guard before it comes online.
Maple has to play this a bit more careful here. That shout does provide a nice bit of overhealth to everyone from Subsun here as that pulse bomb and Rampage come out. But it is Dusk finding the kills here as 3 already fall at the side of Subsun here. That blade doing solid work, but 3 answered for in retribution. Make that a full 5. That is a team kill from Subsun. That is insane. Going down 3 members and then saying, no, we can rally, we can got this, we can get this here. And they just do so here on the back of only their Tracer and their Junker Queen. Incredible heroics out there on the side of Subsun.
I do think Ruby going over to Cassidy was also a big swap. Having that flashbang to hinder the Genji and the Venture makes their job that much harder. And obviously, they're just aggressing very hard on this backline.
That's really solid knife work out there from M21, and it's just icing on the cake to clean up those remaining members of Shiko no Kayji. Looking very solid here. The Ducks was pretty uncontested for Subsun as they're heading into our 5th and final flashpoint, folks. I mean, this one has really gone the distance.
It's all going to come down to Junkyard. This initial engagement from the side of Shiko no Kayji, they're going to have the advantage when it comes to ultimates, but again, I think what this is going to come down to, not only is being aggressive with these ultimates, but making sure you conserve as many as you can. Positioning with that, oh man.
Yeah, early downpour is able to lock up and get the kill on HM08, but M21 is there to clean up Fact Fox. However, the rest of Shiko no Kayji are still putting in work, even losing their tank as this fight has truly reached its end. The point has unlocked here, and that is first control of Junkyard going the way of Shiko no Kayji.
Yeah, at first I thought that was going to be really bad for Shiko no Kayji. They didn't get crazy amount of value. They forced positioning with the hazard ultimate, but then he died. So I'm like, what's going to happen here? But they were able to follow up with the kills.
Yeah, really solid work coming out there. The team rallying around, even losing their tank as that fight drug further and further on. Maple about to have this pulse bomb as well, adding to the full slate of ultimates here for Subsun.
Oh, they got back capped.
The control and massive back cap coming through there. That is crucial positioning. And timing here is everything on Flashpoint. These points tick up so quickly. Dusk just waiting for that deflect to time out, and Ruby confirms that kill with the Deadeye there. And Anti with the Rampage onto Flada. No escape for the Wooyoung or any remaining members here of Shiko no Kayji. No chance for a flip whatsoever. And yeah, that is a solid back cap, really allowing to a massive positional advantage here for Subsun.
Oh, that's a devastating team fight. You know, maybe if, you know, they didn't allow the back cap, you know, and they're able to gain, you know, 50, 60%, you know, maybe they're in a better position. But they don't have any ults. They still have 2 ultimates on them. There's the Kitsune Rush. This is looking bad.
Rush coming through the wall just to try and stop some momentum, but not nearly enough here as HM08 rolls through with that ultimate. Flada is already down here, losing Fact Fox as well. With as fast as these points go up, there's almost going to be no chance at all for Shiko no Kayji to even touch here. Subsun looking really solid with a team kill to potentially close out the map here. The Wrecking Ball from Fact Fox. They are desperate to touch, but there is really not a chance to do so here as 100% ticks up for Junkyard. That is the final flashpoint. Subsun, despite, you know, having the screws put to them, will take the 3rd map in the series and go up to series point.
With their backs against the wall, they're able to make it happen in the end. Kind of what we talked about on Lijiang Tower, when they needed to clutch up and get things done, they dominated, and that's basically what happened on those last 2 points. And again, I think it came down to, I think Shiko no Kayji got a little bit too aggressive pushing up on that 2nd point. allowed Maple to get the back cap on the Tracer, and to me, it was all downhill from there.
Yeah, that was a really brutal situation to find yourself in, allowing, losing sight of Maple there, which, not playing the Reaper, but here on the Tracer, it's devastatingly slippery in a different way. So, yeah, that is a brutal fight when you're going to have to look back on and kick yourself over a little bit later, but all you can do is go next here. We do have potentially our final map in the series coming up here, and once again, having lost this one, this does mean it is going to go in favor of Shiko no Kayji in terms of decision, so they once again have the chance to take us where they want to go. Now, this last map here of New Junk City was the choice of Subsun, so despite, that being so close, that was their choice. So we'll see exactly what we want to run into this here. So far, the map choices have borne out, the victor. Whoever chooses has won the maps, at least this far in the series.
I think that's the thing that I'm wondering is now we only have 2 map choice, not map choices, but map types we can go to left. So we only have push and we have hybrid. And so it's less less options to choose from, obviously, but it narrows the scope. If we're good at these certain comps, less map types, less maps to choose from in our favor. And to me, a lot of the push maps play pretty similarly. I feel like a lot of the stuff you could run on Esperanza, you can run on why is it Runasapi? And then hybrid's the one where it can get very variable. Obviously King's Row is still in the map pool, but I don't think you really want to take them on Braum unless you want to take the Ramatra duel again. Maybe you go back to the Zen on that map. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I do think going forward it makes it that much tougher for Shiko to be able to come back, given that I don't think these map pools favor them as much. And we do have word of what map they have chosen. They've decided to take us to push, and they're taking us to Canada, New Queen Street.
All right, New Queen Street, not usually the favored push map here, so could provide for some interesting decisions here. Honestly, I don't care what the decision is compositionally here. I want to see Subsun ban out the Zenyatta. You cannot have that launching discords into your face for the entire duration of this map here. If you want to allow yourself the chance to clean this up before we get to a map 5, you do not want to face down another Flata Zenyatta. What a fantastic run.
It all could come down to these ban and / protect phases for the side of Shiko no Kayji. They have to win the next 2 maps in a row, or they are headed to the losers bracket. Albeit, even if they do end up losing here, I think it was well fought, and I feel like the rest of the teams who go to losers bracket need to keep their eye out on Shiko no Kayji if that happens. But they have not had to cross that barrier yet, as they still got 2 maps to make something happen.
You're absolutely right. Just in terms of pure standings, you would not expect Shiko no Kayji to be playing at this level, just in terms of what we're looking at coming into this. Subsun have decided to go ahead. Oh, no, rather, Shiko no Kayji have banned out the Junker Queen here. So, yeah, that is going to be the linchpin of these compositions so far out of Subsun's hands. We'll see if they can adapt to this, because that Ramatra composition of theirs, they looked solid on it, but unfortunately just faced too much pressure from the opposing Ramatra and Zenyatta combination.
I think that was probably the best ban they could have made. And in response, we see the Venture ban, which I think also well chosen by the side of Subsun. The Venture for Shiko has played very well, especially if they go with the Ramatra on New Junk City. We're not sure that's exactly what they're going to do yet. We do have a substitute coming in as well for the side of Shiko, as we got Shige coming in on the DPS line.
Yep, Simple and Shige back at it once again here, and Maple and Ruby continue to mix things up here. For the DPS line of Shiko no Kayji, still, of course, not a change for them, but Maple, it has to be noted, will have access to that Reaper once again, so we'll see exactly whether that if they want to run that composition heading into this here, or I think there's so much room for, and pretty much the vast majority of these push maps, I think there's tons of room for Reaper to find this play here. Whereas Tracer, also a classic staple of really almost every single map type. Only very few situations I can think where Tracer is not being run. If you want to run these angles, if you want to have this mobility, having this dive potential here, even this dive rush potential, you could certainly make that Tracer work for you. Alongside the Reaper, that would be a bit of a surprise, but we'll see exactly what they want to roll out with here. Maple having that flexibility does mean you could either have to deal with that Tracer or the Reaper coming into this.
I mean, we did see Subsun ban at map number 1, but I think the Zarya goes incredibly strong on this map, especially if you're going to play Tracer as well. The grab pulse always goes absolutely bananas. And Reaper also pairs extremely well with the Zarya. So I think that could be an angle you go for. Just we haven't seen it, and they did ban it. So we don't know if that's in their repertoire or not.
Yeah, looking back, I'm kind of thinking that early Zarya ban might have been a protection, allowing them to play Junker Queen coming into that first map in the series there. Or if they just felt that, uncomfortable running that or wanted to get it out of the hands. Because we haven't seen, Zarya's been unbanned for several maps at this point, and it has not seen any play on the side of Shiko no Kayji. So I don't know if that's something that they were hoping to run in any case here. But as we head into the map itself, we will see in just a few moments these hovered compositions coming out the gate. No Venture, so of course Simple and Ruby, neither of them will be able to get value. Honestly, both of them really solid Ventures so far in this series here. We've got to see a ton of value from both of them on New Junk City. And you really would have to worry about those corners. All those narrow choke points that Titanic Shock could easily just gobble up your squishier targets here. But rolling out the gates here so far, we'll have to see. It looks like it is on the side of Shiko no Kayji. They're hovering at least the Ramatra composition, whereas Subsun, I was not expecting the Winston comp, and we'll see if that changes in 10 seconds.
I don't want to comment on either of his teams yet until I see them roll out on it, because it feels very interesting. So it looks like Fact Fox, who was highlighting the Malka for a second, ends up on the Ramatra, and M21 is going to play the Winston, and they are going to go with that Reaper Tracer, as we mentioned, that we might see.
Positionally, in a vacuum, I do like this from Subsun. I have not seen any Winston or equivalent plays so far from M21X, so I'm very curious to see exactly what variation and how comfortable they are running with this. But it turns out when Maple is in the field here on this Reaper, there's not really much more to worry about here. That Sombra from Simple is doing your very best to run away, but with that Tracer and Reaper, I mean, there's really very little you can do in terms of escape from those two quick heroes there. And M21, respectable so far in that first fight on the Winston.
We do see Simple and Shio making huge changes going. Shio's going to go over to the Tracer off the Sombra, which I think is the smart decision. I don't think Sombra is that great as currently constructed. And again, I think what that came down to was just the separation that came in on that first fight. And if you're going to separate and play angles, you have to find picks, and we didn't see that from Shiko no Kayji. As you can see on screen, Fact Fox has now gone over to the Mauga as well.
Yeah, Mauga swap here, determined to punish this Winston, burn down that bubble, and then burn down that scientist. And that is exactly what happens as Shige cleans up that Winston there. M21 might be rethinking this with this particular hero swap coming through from Shiko no Kayji. Fact Fox does eat a ton of damage though, has to play a bit carefully here, and unfortunately not able to do so with a pulse bomb stuck directly to that massive Mauga body. As HMOA cleans up Simple as well. I mean, that is Subsun. If they can keep Anthalen alive here on this Lucio, yes, just able to win that duel against Flata. About to have both support ults online here for Subsun. And yeah, they still maintain the lead so far.
And the late staggers coming in, it's just going to be the cherry on top, as they might be able to cap this point. It's going to depend how aggressive Shiko no Kayji wants to play when they're still down 2. We do see M21 who's gone over to Sigma as well. I mean, we have seen Sigma go okay into the Mauga. You have the E and the Accretion Rock, which can disrupt a lot of what Mauga's going to do. And it looks like, okay, they will get the touch just in time before the cap.
Yeah, that is absolutely crucial timing out here from Shiko no Kayji. However, of course, Backbox doesn't really have a lot of defense available to you with that Mauga, and so Maple just has a field day with those Hellfire shotguns. Not really much you can do facing down so much damage, and lifesteal has to be mentioned, of course, from that Reaper. Ruby cleaning up the squishier targets on the back end of that engagement just for good measure here, and they didn't have to spend a single ult to make that fight swing their way for Subsun.
Again, it's just the situations where you're winning fights, no ult commit. I do like seeing Maple going down early. This opens up the floodgates for the side of Shiko no Kayji. But with the forward spawns active for Subsun, they're going to have to take another fight in the mid ground here with both teams coming up on huge amount of ultimates. And with your Kiri going down for the side of Subsun, that's, again, with the forward spawns gone, they're going to have to look to back out because they don't have their main source of heals anymore.
Yeah, honestly, a massive pick coming out from Shiko no Kayji. Subsun, as you're saying, really have to play this a bit more carefully here, have to consider their positioning. However, consideration and positioning be damned, this Maple goes for a Death Blossom, does clean up the Kiriko, but that is all you're going to get, apart from a swift boot back to the spawn doors there. Sound Barrier and Overclock rolling from Shiko no Kayji. They are determined to clean this fight up here. Might not have needed quite all of those tools. This fight looked like it was already won in your favor, but the bot has really not made a ton of progress here, being stalled out repeatedly by Ruby. So, yeah, and they're coming into this one with 4 ults still available. This is going to be tough for Shiko no Kayji.
I think it's just all going to depend how much value they can get out of this Kitsune Rush. It feels like, obviously Sound Barrier can outwit a lot of that. So I think they got to hope that they can avoid this flux.
Rush coming out from HM08 first. They really want to put the pedal to metal here. Rush is going to be laid on the side of Snows as well, excuse me there, as Anthalen getting the better of Shige. That Sound Barrier absolutely massive, just as he suggested, cleaning up those remaining members of the side of Shiko no Kayji, looking very comfortable in doing so. Subsun there, spending only 2 ults, both supports has to be said, but looking very comfortable in that fight. And once again, no cap coming through for Shiko no Kayji, and the bot is still very much in control of Subsun, still in the lead, and we have 5 minutes left in the time bank.
Being able to bait out that Kitsune Rush early and then being able to re-engage with your beat was just the reason why that fight was won for the side of Subsun. Now they can continue to push. They still have Flux. They still have Pulse. They're in a very good spot, but I think they're just playing the smart, just playing the position game, not trying to aggress too hard and find themselves caught out in the open.
Shiko no Kayji have to know that they are very much the losers in terms of a pure ult fight here. Getting an early kill into Ruby, though, is absolutely massive. However, the rest of the team is still alive, and kicking Maple is just able to devour that Ramattra once the defensive tools wear themselves away here. M21 also has this Flux. Gonna be really tough to capture these swift and squishy targets here, but of course you would love to find a nice sizable Flux here. Hopefully finding that Ramattra if you get a chance to, but without that shield in the way, it's going to prove a little bit tougher here as we rotate onto the high ground. This is just a really hard position to defend from when you're just facing so much pressure from all angles here, as M21 is just holding forward while the bot is being pushed behind your tank there. Still not spending anything in these fights here. Subsun just winning distance by outplaying in the neutral here as Ruby gets the better of Simple and a Death Blossom on the back line. Maple, however, does eat a railgun shot for their trouble, so Snow's able to clean up as well. Ruby falling at the back end of this fight, so again, spending ults later on, but it looks as though Subsun are losing this fight the further it drags on.
To me, Subsun, it's interesting because it felt like they wanted to finish things off right then and there, and they, threw out a bunch of ultimates and didn't get any value out of it. It felt desperate when they didn't need to be desperate. This feels very unlike Subsun. So now Shiko no Kayji is able to win that without any ult investment. Now they have 5 ults. They will, again, have to take another fight here in the mid area, but they have a lot at their disposal. And this time around, if they use their ults properly, they should be able to get the point cap this time around.
Yeah, they have so much room to work with, is what I would have said, but unfortunately Maple has just devoured your tank. So there's very little you can do in the face of that. Ultimates or not, Snows goes for the Kitsune Rush, but it is just Maple, Ruby, devouring all members of the team there. And you also have HM, has to be said, cleaning up as well. So really solid rotation and go button there out from Subsun. I mean, Shiko no Kayji did not expect that. They only spent 1 ult, so again, they still have plenty to work with here, but now bots very much back in Subsun control.
And they're still able to, in the meantime, because of their late Kitsune Rush, be able to build to their beat so they can outlast a lot of these incoming ultimates. There we go. Annihilation for beat.
Another immediate pick off there. Simple falls down. Maple is just such an assassin here. Annihilation rolling out from Factbox. But that health pool is looking a little bit sheepish here. And yeah, that is HM cleaning up 2 members, Ruby and M21 as well, in the kill feed of Subsun. I mean, they're just drawing these ultimates out one by one, baiting these engagements out from Shiko no Kayji, and spending only as much as they need to continue these fights.
As we see Factbox now going over to the D.Va, which, again, I think D.Va plays horribly into the Sigma. We'll see how this goes, but basically you just get free accretion rocks into this D.Va, and Shio's already down.
Yeah, I mean, Ruby's just finding these picks off. If it's not Maple, it's Ruby. However, Flada is there, able to put answers to that Reaper. We're trading blow for blow here. These fights are getting messier the further we get into this map. But yeah, as you're saying, there's not very much a D.Va can do against the might of these accretions coming through. And especially not when you're out of mech, especially when that Sigma has access to that gravitic flux here. And Subsun, this is exactly where they found themselves in just a minute or so ago, pushing into the final stretch of the map here. They are having to wait for the rest of the members to come back from spawn. Remember, we did lose a couple there as we were trading in the neutral fights, but we have so many ultimates on the side of Subsun to work with here. Ruby does fall dangerously low, has to get a bit of healing. I think that was 1 literal health there, does get the healing at the end of the day. This time, Maple pays dividends with that Death Blossom. And as soon as Factbox gets back into mech, unfortunately, you are out once again. That is what Maple's been waiting for the entire series long. Bookends to it from Lijiang Tower to New Queen Street. No chance of a touch at the very end of the day there. And then it's going to be Subsun cleaning up the series 3-1. A valiant effort from Shiko no Kayji, but unfortunately, Subsun were able to rally and just absolutely put the screws to their opponents.
As we kind of mentioned coming in to this series, Subsun was definitely the favorites, you know, being the #1 overall seed, going up against, you know, one of the 4 seeds from the other group. But I think Shiko no Kayji, you know, showed, you know, that they're a great team. There's a reason why they made playoffs. Clean up a few things here or there. I think they could make a deep run in the losers bracket.
Yeah, would love to see how far they got, and I think you're absolutely right. These teams who get knocked down to that losers bracket are gonna have to, you know, have a bit of a sideways glance at Shiko no Kayji. They really put up a very solid fight against what is currently the top seed in playoffs here. So definitely nothing to be ashamed of for a loss here. You got a solid map and a bunch of very close engagements there, but all praise and power to Subsun here. Very solid stuff all the way through. They had their moments, they wobbled a little bit there, they were able to sort of play a close game, but when it came down to the wire, I mean, they were in control of New Queen Street pretty much the entire way through that map.
Congratulations to Subsun moving on to the winners semifinals. We'll see how things develop in this NA Open. Money on the line once again for this division. We are going to throw it to a quick break because when we come back, we're going to be having an interview with Maple from Subsun. So don't go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss that. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, folks. So we have an interview with our victor here. It is Maple from the side of Subsun, looking very good today so far. Maple, how are you feeling coming off the back of that victory?
Honestly, not that good. We knew we were gonna win it, but we didn't take it seriously, and we lost a map. I'm fine with it. It's not like it matters, but we'll take the rest seriously.
Look, I'm not gonna lie. I was keeping an eye on chat, and I saw you like, well, my Reaper was banned. GG go next. You know, we got Reaper back, and we're good. You worried that teams are gonna find a way to counter that? You guys gonna figure out another way to win matches?
Oh, not at all. I just haven't played anything, or really any console in like a week. All I need to do is pick up Tracer again now that we're in playoffs. It should be fine.
Okay. And then, given the landscape of the playoffs that we have, who do you think is your guys' biggest competition you're worried the most about?
Probably Snowfall. They're, the only team that's beat us so far.
Nice. All right. Well, just to close things off, what do you think was sort of like, what allowed? Was it you taking the foot off the gas, or was there something that Shiko no Kayji had that kind of gave you, threw you guys for a loop?
Oh, I truly think we were just messing around a little too much. We just, we're having fun. They did take advantage of the mistakes we were making, though, so good on them.
Yeah. All right. Before we let you go, anyone you want to shout out before you head out?
I think, as always, it has to go to my Queen player. M21, he is always on top of it.
Yeah, incredible synergy between the two of you all throughout the series long. So thank you so much for joining us, Mabel. Congratulations once again, and best of luck through the winners bracket.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for us here on the broadcast tonight. But of course, there is plenty more CGL playoff action to come. So stay tuned here. You'll see more of it throughout the weekend as we get further and further towards it. I mean, we're still in the middle of the week, which I can't believe. But yes, plenty more to come here. So from To Tryhard Ray and Rags, thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your night.
I'm not crazy, Malin. I'm not crazy, Malin. I've just been in a very bad mood for 40 years. 40 years.